A guten Erev Shabbos, Ktiva v'chatima tova. May it be a great beginning of a great year for all of us. Oh, and happy anniversary. Rosh Hashana is the anniversary of the creation of humankind on the 6th day of creation. The Gemara explains to us that the first day of creation was the 25th of Elul, the second day of creation was the 26th, and so on. So the 6th day of creation, when God created humankind, was Rosh Hashanah, the 1st of Tishrei, 5,784 years ago, however you'd like to reckon that. It's the anniversary of a lot of other things too, that we could just as well be celebrating. Some 25 centuries ago, after leading us back to Israel from exile in Babylon, Ezra and Nehemiah, priest and scribe, gathered us together in Jerusalem and read to us from the Torah. We cried, we wept. It's recorded in chapter 8 of the book of Nehemiah, because we realized that we had let other things get in the way of keeping a Jewish life. We got our priorities mixed up. They told us then, according to that passage, Al tis'ablu v'al tivku. Don't mourn and do not cry. Hayom kadosh l'Hashem Elokeichem. This is a holy day to God your God. So go eat good food and drink sweet wine. Ichlu mashmanim ushesu mamsakim. Great advice for the Jewish people. Don't cry so much. Have a piece of cake. Have a little something to eat. This was Rosh Hashanah, back home in Israel after a long absence. There's also a nice haftorah we could have read today from 2 Kings, where the prophet Elisha came to Shunam and blessed the Shunammite woman with a child, clearly a source in Torah for a children's program. This took place also on Rosh Hashanah. However, those events are not foremost in our minds with the haftorah that we read on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. We remember all those things and more to come when we daven Musaf, one of the most outstandingly powerful and resonant prayers we'll daven all year. In our haftorah for the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we recall Chana, the prayer of Chana, who was childless and who wanted to have a child. And so she went to the tabernacle, she went to the Mishkan, that's where you went in those days, and she davened, and she poured out her heart to God, and she asked to be blessed with a child, and she promised that if she would have that child, she would dedicate him to serve in the sacred precincts. She said, as we will hear so beautifully, no doubt, v'nasativ l'Hashem kol yemei chayav. If I am blessed with a son, I will dedicate him to divine service all the days of his life. And indeed she was so blessed, and she did give birth to a son, and she called him Shmuel, God heard. Why this story? Why now? What's the outstanding, remarkable feature of the events in this haftorah? Is it the way Chana prayed? Yes, and there's even more to the story. She also had to deal with Eli, the high priest, who thought she wasn't praying the right way. Anybody ever had a rabbi get in your way when you're trying to daven? Okay, one take-home message of the haftorah, and here's a little inside baseball. Somehow they knew that attendance would be good on Rosh Hashanah, so they put in this shining example of someone davening with sincerity, with humility, modesty, to show us this is how you daven. So on a day when prayer is so important, here's our model of how to do it. A woman called Chana. But wait, there's more. Are we amazed that God heard her prayer? Not so amazing. That's what God does. God hears prayers. Sometimes the answer to the prayer is not the one we want or not the one we expect, but God hears them for sure. Baruch atah shomea tefillah. It says at the end of the Hineni prayer, just before Musaf. Blessed are you who hears prayer. Is the outstanding feature of this haftorah that its central character is a woman? That's a great thing, and all of us, no matter where we sit in shul, should be taking inspiration from this Jewish leader and role model, one of many inspiring women and men. So what really is the game changer here? What landed this Haftorah such a central part in the Rosh Hashana Machzor? Are you ready? It's that Hannah kept her promise. She kept her promise. She said, I will bring this child, if I'm blessed with a child, to a life of service. She was blessed as she had requested, and she followed through on her word. She didn't say, well, I really meant when he's grown up and he can choose, or once he finishes medical school. She promised, and she kept her promise. In this sense, we're taking inspiration from Hannah today to keep our promises and honor our commitments. We tell different versions of these same jokes, and they all add up to the same thing. The parking place story of the man who's about to be late for an important meeting, and in the middle of downtown, how's he ever going to find a parking spot and be on time for this meeting? So he's not a religious guy, but a prayer wouldn't hurt. So he says, please, God, help me find a parking space, and I promise I'll put on tefillin every morning. The words no sooner out of his mouth, and a car pulls out of a spot right in front of the building where he needs to go, and he says, oh, never mind, God, I found a parking spot on my own, all by myself. Or the woman who's crossing a bridge, and she's nervous, so she makes a quick vow. Dear Lord in heaven, she prays, if I make it across this bridge, I will give $100 to tzedakah. Halfway across the bridge, she says, you know, turns out it's not as rickety as I thought. I think $50 should do the trick. She's almost to the end, and she says, well, I misjudged that one. You know, I'll give $18 and we'll call it even. And just then the bridge starts to rattle and sway in the wind, and she grabs onto the handrails and she says, oh, God, I make a little joke and you take me so seriously. It's not a question of we want to be independent and we want to do things ourselves. It's a whole other realm, other than beyond independence and acknowledgement. It's really a question of relationships and promises and commitments. That's the challenge in ourselves that we confront on Rosh Hashanah, beginning with this Haftorah. Here's what it might mean. First of all, we go through this every year with tickets and membership. People call the office and say, I'm just coming for Rosh Hashanah. We have a whole conversation about tickets. I'm sure that lively conversation is not going anywhere. Let's emphasize what's important here. It's exactly right. You're here. You're coming on Rosh Hashanah. That shows commitment to our community, to our kehillah, to our shul, which so many people built lovingly and carefully and painstakingly with their own hands, their own hearts, their dedication and involvement and commitment. And what happens on the high holidays when people come? We affirm that commitment and that dedication. You show up because it's a big day. It's the beginning of the year. We all want to show our support. We're in. We belong. We're family. We're all in this together. And tomorrow, and then Monday, I'm not a prophet, but the day after Rosh Hashanah, attendance falls off a little bit. I get it. I get it. If we had our wonderful chazanim and our choir here every day, we would all be here for sure every day. I've been trying for years to get them to move to Bayview. I'm not giving up. You try and convince them. We all prayed so hard over the last few years for our choir to come back. And thank God this year they will be here with us. Wonderful. See, sometimes the answer to prayer is yes. But by Monday, the day after Rosh Hashanah, there will be most probably a few more empty seats. But then there's Shabbos Shuvah and the Drasha, then Kol Nidre, full house again, Yom Kippur Day, Ne'ilah. Let me put in a little advertisement for Rabbi Beshefkin, who will be here Yom Kippur with us once again. And then after Yom Kippur, the morning after, there will be, putting it gently, a few more empty seats. But maybe not. Maybe this year will be different. Maybe we will find a different way to fulfill our pledges, keep our commitments, put ourselves all in. Because as everyone knows, as we all know, this kehillah was built more than anything else on commitment, on dedication, on promises to the future. Okay, it's also a very nice piece of property. It's also a beautiful building. We get positive comments, compliments all the time on the wonderful beauty of the place. But more than all of that, it's the commitment of those who built it, who carried it on their shoulders, figuratively and literally, to keep this community up and running. At the end of the day, that's all there is. The planet is full of beautiful houses of worship that stand empty, because the building is still there, but the people have let their commitment fall off. They've not kept their promise as they had intended. A commitment in any relationship to another person, to a community, means even when I don't necessarily feel like it, even when things might not be going hunky-dory, we stick together, we help each other out. The marriage counselors will tell you that relationships ideally are 50-50 on average, only on average. In real life, some days they're 70-30, some days they're 90-10, sometimes 55-45. You hope over time that it averages out. The reality is sometimes we're able to give more, and sometimes we're more in need. So we give what we have, and we take what we feel we must. The paradigm of such a relationship, maybe the essence of a relationship like this, is the Jewish people's relationship to Israel. Right now it's become fashionable to broadcast dissatisfaction and distance from Israel. Maybe we don't like the people running it, maybe we don't like the laws or the process. Is this a relationship? I'm only in it as long as the other party does what I want? This is embarrassing. That's not a real relationship. That's selfishness, arrogance, dictatorship. I get to say what happens and everyone else has to listen and follow me, or I check out. What kind of commitment is that? When things get difficult or troubling, that's exactly the time to lean in and offer to do more. Do what we can to make things better, not turn our backs ever. Commitment to a relationship, a pledge, a promise, a covenant is even when it's not the way I would do it, I'm still in. Remember my slogan on judicial reform? Let's all judge one another favorably. For as many eggs as we put in the Israel basket, the Jewish people is larger than that. And that is where our first commitment is. To God's children, our sisters and brothers, the Jewish people, all over the world, in Israel, in Canada, everywhere, whether or not they live their lives exactly as we do, who are still our flesh and blood, no matter what party they vote for, no matter how many mistakes they make. Maybe, just maybe, they need us more now than ever before, not less. Our commitment this Shabbat, when it coincides with Rosh Hashana, is to show our commitment by not sounding the shofar, even though the shofar is such an important and central part of the day of Rosh Hashana. We trust that whatever shofar accomplishes in our hearts and in the world and the heavens, Shabbos accomplishes that. So we keep our commitment. On Sunday, it's not Shabbat, so we'll keep our promise to sound the shofar, 100 sounds, if you stay all the way till the end, to fulfill what God asks of us. Imru lefanai b'Rosh Hashana malchayos zichronos shofaros. Recite before me, says God, on Rosh Hashanah, verses of sovereignty and remembrance and shofar, says the Gemara. V'tam lichuni aleichem. And in doing that, crown me as your king. Ubameh b'shofar. With what? With the sound of the shofar. So, come back on Sunday, make yourself a promise, make a commitment to hear the shofar and to let it touch what in our souls and our hearts it needs to touch. And while we're at it, let's renew and re-energize our commitments to this, our precious community of Kehilat Sharei Torah, because that's what makes it what it is. The most beautiful building will not keep a community together. Commit to join a shiur, start a new group. Commit to come to a Friday night dinner when we start those up after the clocks change. Bring some friends, make it happen. KST begins with you. Okay, it actually begins with K, but it continues with you and with me and with all of us together. So may this Rosh Hashanah truly be, as its name suggests, the head and the direction and the compass for the whole year. May we be together often and in good health, for good occasions, happy times. May we all be inscribed and sealed in the book of life for a year of happiness, well-being in body and soul, and peace. May it be a good and sweet year. Shabbat Shalom, Gemar Chatima Tova, Shana Tova Umetuka.